This INX Company presentation is about the Globally Harmonized System, or GHS. These images are pictograms, and you'll see them on the new Globally Harmonized System, safety data sheets, and product labels. If you've traveled abroad, chances are the first time you tried to plug in your razor, your electric razor, or your laptop, you found that the plug-in wouldn't accept the prongs in your electrical device. And you said to yourself, gee, why can't they standardize these things? Well, the Globally Harmonized System is an attempt to standardize the way the hazards of chemicals are reported internationally, so that if you read and see an SDS or a product label in Europe or Asia or America, they will be similar or the same. Once our SDSs and new product labels come out, it's important to remember and important to tell your customers that the products have not changed, only the labels have changed, and the SDSs have changed in appearance. The products stay the same. The goals of GHS are to enhance the protection of human health and the environment, reduce the need for testing and evaluation, and facilitate international trade. Remember, GHS is a guidance document. The U.S. OSHA has adopted most of the categories as a regulation. Each country who has adopted GHS can add, refine, or change the categories to meet the country regulations, so GHS is getting close to globally harmonized, but it's not really harmonized, as you'll soon see. Some states have added regulations such as Proposition 65 in California. Pennsylvania, Washington State, and Maine have their own chemical lists that we add on our SDS for convenience of our customers. In the United States, OSHA regulates the workplace. It's important to remember that GHS is mandatory. It's not optional, it's mandated by OSHA. In order to ensure chemical safety in the workplace, information about the identities and hazards of the chemical must be available and understandable to workers. OSHA's Hazardous Communication Standard requires the development and dissemination of such information. Chemical manufacturers and importers are required to evaluate the hazards of the chemicals they produce or import and prepare safety data sheets to convey the hazard information to their downstream customers. Chemical manufacturers and importers are required to label product containers using the same hazard information to convey the hazard information to downstream customers, so that an SDS will convey the same information that will be seen on product labels. The Globally Harmonized System is contained in the Purple Book, which was written by the United Nations. Currently, the countries that have adopted GHS are included on this screen. GHS classifications that you'll be seeing on all SDSs and product labels include the physical hazards associated with the product, the health hazards associated with the product, and the environmental hazards associated with the product. American SDSs are not required, however, to contain environmental hazards because OSHA does not have jurisdiction over the environment. Therefore, oftentimes an SDS in Europe may well look different than an SDS in America, because in Europe all environmental hazards must be on SDSs and labels. In an attempt to make all SDSs understandable regardless of the language you understand or are able to read, pictograms have been developed so that users and workers handling chemicals can understand the health risks associated with the product by seeing these pictograms. The most ubiquitous pictogram for printing inks is the exclamation mark. That signifies that the product in the container is a skin irritant or a skin sensitizer, has acute toxicity, narcotic effects, possible respiratory tract irritant, and or a hazard to the ozone layer. It could be one of any of those bulleted items. The middle pictogram in the top row is understandable probably by everyone. It signifies that the product in the container is flammable. And on the left-hand side is a catch-all health hazard category referred to as the Starman, if the product is carcinogenic, or as a mutagen, a reproductive toxin, a respiratory sensitizer, a target organ toxin, or an aspiration toxin. Any one or all of those things will require the Starman symbol. The other pictograms on this screen will be less visible or you won't see very often, with the possible exception of the corrosion pictogram and possibly the aquatic toxicity pictogram, depicted by the dead tree and dead fish. So let's discuss what GHS safety data sheets will look like. And by the way, safety data sheets are the new term for MSDSs. All safety data sheets will have 16 sections, and if information in any one of those 16 sections is not available, it must be stated that it's not available or unknown. The new elements include Section 2, which must contain label information and pictograms if any pictograms are applicable. Also in Section 2, the percentage of unknown ingredients for acute toxicity must appear, and it will also appear on the label. The same elements must be in English, and compositions with greater than 1% for all hazard ingredients must show, and greater than 0.1% of all ingredients that are carcinogens, mutagens, or reproductive toxins. State carcinogen status according to OSHA, IARC, and NTP specific to the U.S., not GHS. Let's take a look at an actual example of an SDS of our product called Inks Cure Offset K Process Yellow. You'll note in Section 2 there are two pictograms, the exclamation mark, which is there because it causes eye irritation, and the Starman, because ingredients in this product are suspected of damaging fertility or the unborn child. Now let's look at the SDS of the same product for Europe. You'll note the European SDS has subsections, 1.1, 1.2, etc. You'll also note that in Section 2 there are two pictograms, only this time it's an exclamation mark because of the eye irritation. But there is no Starman, and that is because in Europe the threshold for the ingredients that cause the Starman in the US SDS can be higher or are higher than in the United States. You'll also notice that the dead fish and dead tree pictogram are there because in Europe environmental pictograms are required when there are environmental hazards, and in the United States they are not. So let's now talk about GHS labels. Required elements include pictograms, signal words, hazard statements, precautionary phrases, storage and disposal information, product supplier information. Other information can be included, but it must not conflict with the other hazards. The use of pictograms is new for OSHA. Previously, symbols were used only by the DOT. Symbols must be in red border. If a .dot label is present, then omit the GHS pictogram on the shipping label. This may be changing to accommodate global requirements. No precise placement is required, but certain elements must be together on the label for the signal word, hazard statement, and pictogram. So let's take a look at the new SDS product labels. On the top of the screen shows the current or old INX offset process yellow label. On the bottom is the new GHS label. You'll note that the old label has the HMIS rating in the middle bottom of the label, where it will no longer be seen in new SDS labels. We're not supporting the HMIS or the HMIS in the new format because it conflicts with the numbering scheme of GHS. You'll see too that the two pictograms, the starman and the exclamation mark, are on the label of the new design that coincides with what the information seen on the safety data sheet. In this example, we show the US label compared to the European label example. And again, the US label has the exclamation pictogram and the starman pictogram, whereas the European label has the exclamation mark and the dead fish and the dead tree, for reasons explained in the SDS portion. So let's talk about some of the positives and negatives associated with GHS. Safety data sheets and label standardization is a good thing. Now firefighters will know immediately worldwide to go to Section 5 in the SDS to understand what the proper firefighting measures are. The harmonization will help to promote international trade, and the new pictograms will be very useful in helping with the language barrier in communications. On the negative side, money and time required to redo all the labels, the major cost to upgrade SDS and the labels, print on demand, pre-printed, color printers, and new software. Our software system that is aligned with our SAP system has gone under or been upgraded significantly to accommodate the requirements of GHS. Another negative you could argue is that GHS is not really GHS because countries have the option to adopt from the guidance. They don't have to do everything exactly the way it's spelled out in the purple book. They can choose to adapt as they wish. So it's not completely harmonized. There are differences, as you could see, between the US and European SDS. Another negative, again, is that the HMIS system will no longer be used by INX because we found that the numbering system is contrary to GHS. And there are could be negative impacts if you do not comply with GHS. It's important to remember that most sections of our SDS will correspond to the old MSDS, and that we're not doing away with Section 9, where the physical and chemical properties of the product are outlined. These are important values for our customers, such as VOCs, densities, pH, etc. These will not change. These will continue to appear in our new SDS. Conversely, Proposition 65 information will be available in Section 15, and other information that was formerly in MSDSs will be still found in our SDS. So most of the information that was formerly in MSDSs will not be going away, but you'll still be able to find them in the new SDS.